Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Welcome to the #1 YouTube channel with the #1 YouTuber bringing you DC updates, news, views, and opinions. I produce, write, direct, and star in my own plays here in Cyprus. I spent 6 months in Hollywood. I won the Iron Apple reality show, Iron Apple Raw, and I'm developing the first English-speaking dramas here on Cypriot TV. I am embedded within the entertainment industry. No, I am not Spielberg. I am not fake. I'm not even Tom Cruise. But I made some contacts while I was at Hollywood. I know what I am talking about. So I will not tickle you under the chin. I will give you my views, and we've got 3 huge articles to read about with some huge DC updates. We've got one from the Hollywood Reporter about WB considering shelving the Flash movie and their 3 or 4 options they've got for that movie, thanks to the Ezra Miller calamity. Then Variety do their own version of the THR article I read to you the other day, the confusing state of the DCEU, and Vanity Fair have done a huge spread on Black Adam. So we've got a huge show today, so we better get on with it. So like I did with my articles the other day, like I did with the Hollywood Reporter article the other day, I will read sections, I will put it down, and I will explain to you and give you my views on those situations. So let's clear my throat and let's go. Warner Brothers weighing fate of The Flash as its Ezra Miller problem grows. It's been growing from day one. Remember the first time I did the video about the delay of the Flash movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the moving forward of Shazam, Fury of the Gods? I smelt a rat and nobody believed me. You know, Warner Brothers should have made a decision months and months ago. They've been sitting on the fence, hoping this could go away so they could make a lot of money. That's not gonna happen. The multiverse strategy is dead. I can assure you of that. You will not see Michael Keaton's Batman in the Flash movie. But let's give this a read. Warner Brothers weighing the fate of The Flash as its Ezra Miller problem grows. The studio ponders 3 paths forward for the expensive DC film, with a worst case, if unlikely scenario, including the project being scrapped. Is it unlikely that this film could be shelved altogether? More than likely, it would be the last possible scenario. They spent over $200 million on this film. Could they speculate to accumulate? It's interesting. The fate of Warner Brothers' The Flash hangs in the balance as actor Ezra Miller continues to make headlines for their controversial behavior and various arrests. An outright shelving of the film is not off the table, though it would be the last resort. So basically, this journalist, who is it? Let's have a look, is by Kim Masters and Pamela McClintock. So they reckon they've got some inside information, and they're saying, the studio's saying they are prepared to shelve it, but it's the last case scenario. Surely these discussions they've been having these discussions for months. Surely a decision should have been made ages ago. Warner's and its new parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, had hoped to avoid the line of fire. But you can't avoid a huge chasm hurtling towards you. A decision should have been made. You know, leadership is the forebear of decisions. You've got to be strong with your decisions. You've got to stick to your decisions. And these people haven't made the right decision for this movie going forward. In truth, this movie should have been shelved a very long time ago. Because it's big budget, DC superhero tentpole isn't scheduled to hit theatres until June 23rd, 2023, but the pressure is mounting by the day. Yes, the pressure's mounting. They've made the pressure mount by not making a decision. On Monday, the actor was charged with a felony burglary on Wednesday. Rolling Stone reported that Vermont Child Services Department is attempting to locate a mother and 3 children who have allegedly been residing at Miller's farm in the state, and they want to take these children away from that mother. So this isn't good, is it? And that, my friends, is just the tip of the iceberg. A source with knowledge of the situation says the studio appears to be preparing for 3 possible scenarios. So we know that Zaslav now is taking this situation seriously at long last. First Warner's has received indications that the 29-year-old Miller, whose mother has accompanied the actor in recent days, will seek professional help after returning home to their farm in Vermont, after being away. If that happens, Miller, who goes by they, them pronouns, could give an interview at some point explaining their erratic behaviour over the past few years. I'm sorry, everyone, that just won't cut it. Yes, I want him to get the help he needs. I want they, to get the help that they need, but they have victims. And, the consequences for his actions, for their actions, must be, he can't be, look, I keep on getting it wrong. They can't be the Flash anymore. It's as simple as that. I don't give a shit if they are going to get professional help. This movie, people are not going to forgive him. And maybe if he makes a public statement, that could help the situation. But it's very, very complicated because Miller isn't just the only issue. Zaslav wants to do away with Hamada's multiverse strategy. Things are going to change. I don't know what they do here. I know what I would do. The actor could then do limited press for The Flash and the movie would open in cinemas as planned. It's simply not going to work because the public have a perception of him and they're not going to accept the fact that, I've got some problems and, we've heard about his victims. There's no going back from this. Surely he can't play this character in this movie. The second scenario, even if Miller doesn't reach out for help, Warner's could still release the film, but don't expect Miller to play a prominent role in terms of marketing and publicity. Again, this isn't going to work. It's called The Flash movie. He's the Flash. He's Barry Allen. How can you get away with that? That would be embarrassing because everybody knows what's happened here. This movie will not make any money if it's released starring Ezra Miller. It's as simple as that. Nor would Miller be the Flash going forward, as the role would be recast in future projects. Again, this was a Toby Emmerich stance. It's not going to work. People want him cut now. They've taken away Leslie Grace's role. I agree with the decision of Batgirl being cancelled. We'll talk about her with the Variety article coming up. There's some interesting developments with her Batgirl. But, when someone like Leslie Grace, who does all the right things, has lost her job, it isn't a good look for him to keep his job. And telling us that going forward he won't be the Flash after this movie simply won't cut it. The situation with Miller deteriorates further. This would see Warner's killing the movie outright. Now listen to me. It's deteriorated enough. There's no going back. They're not going to make any money from this movie starring Ezra Miller. It's just like Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. If they don't cut Heard from the movie, it will be a flop, no matter how good it is. It's as simple as that. These decisions should have been made for both movies months ago, and we wouldn't be here now. As it could not be reshot with a different actor. No. It can be reshot with a different actor. It would cost money, but if you do that and you do that well, you'll make around $1 billion at the box office. Now, I wouldn't do that personally. I'd shelve the movie and basically make a new Flash movie. A proper Flash movie, not this. Miller plays multiple characters and is in almost every scene. Scrapping a $200 million film would be an unprecedented move. You mean like cancelling a movie when it's finished, like Batgirl was an unprecedented move? So basically, you're just writing something off because it's rarely happened. That's what they should do. You're not going to make any money. It doesn't matter how much. It doesn't matter that the film costs $200 million. You're going to spend money on marketing. You're going to lose that money because this film will be a flop with Miller in it. So this film won't make any money with Miller in it. So there's no decision. There's only one decision to be made here, that you need a new Flash. All of this comes amid change at Warner Brothers. Earlier this month, newly minted Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav stunned Hollywood when shelving Batgirl, a $90 million movie made for HBO Max. Unlike The Flash, there was no individual controversy. involved. Rather, Zaslav opted to take a tax write-down on the project and pivot away from making streaming films for DC, a decision I agree with. Miller was cast as The Flash in 2014. The same year as Solo the Flash film was announced, the development process has been long, with multiple directors coming and going over the years. One of those reasons is, of course, that Miller hasn't been happy with a lot of those directors until It filmmaker Andy Muschietti finally got the project off the ground. And what about Andy Muschietti? Where is he? He barely talks. He doesn't have any views on this. He's not allowed. Of course, the studio have shut him up. He's barely spoken about this. His sister Barbara has said there was a trailer coming 2 months ago. She lied. She said the other day everything in Flashland is great. It obviously isn't. The film also stars Michael Keaton back as Batman for the first time in 30 years, and Ben Affleck as a different version of Batman. Yes, he's the main DCEU Batman. Miller began their time as The Flash with cameos in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice and Suicide Squad, both released in 2016 before having a main role in Justice League a year later. The Flash is a key film for Warner's as it is expected to chart a new course for the DC Extended Universe. Right, this is now where we need to correct them. This was going to be part of a new course. That's not happening anymore. Why do you think there were reshoots and Miller came back in the summer? They've already cut Keaton out of this movie, and they've already cut out the multiverse strategy from this movie. This new course, Hollywood Reporter, means you don't know very much about what's going on, that a schmuck like me knows more than you. The new course is dead. There will be a new course charted, probably a brand new franchise, eventually. So where are we? So The Flash is a key film for Warner, as it is expected to chart a new course for the DC Extended Universe. The film has been testing well. This is not very, very true. It's not testing badly. It's not testing well either. Even as Miller's legal woes continue to mount. And just imagine, right, if the film's not going to make any money because of one actor, it doesn't matter if it's testing well anyway. Earlier this week, word broke that they had been charged with felony burglary for allegedly stealing bottles of alcohol from a Vermont home. According to a police report posted online, Vermont State Police were notified May the 1st of a potential burglary when residents on County Road in Stamford, Vermont reported that several bottles of alcohol were taken from within the residence while the homeowners were not present. Following an investigation that included taking statements and reviewing surveillance videos, police found probable cause to charge Miller. The latest charge comes after Miller was arrested in April in Hawaii and booked on suspicion of second degree. It's frozen. Give me a moment. I love technology, don't you? So, from within the residence while the homeowners were not present, following an investigation that included taking statements and reviewing surveillance videos, police found probable cause to charge Miller. The latest charge comes after Miller was arrested in April in Hawaii and booked on suspicion of second-degree assault. Per the Hawaii Island Police Department, the incident reportedly occurred when Miller was attending a get-together at a private residence and became irate after being asked to leave and reportedly threw a chair, striking a 26-year-old female on the forehead, per police. He still has a job though, and Leslie Grace hasn't. Think about that. That came on the heels of a March arrest on charges of disorderly conduct and harassment following an incident at a karaoke bar in Hilo, Hawaii. At least one project has already distanced itself from Miller. On Tuesday, the Salvador Dali biopic Daliland left Miller out of its press release in an announcement about its debut at the Toronto Film Festival. The actor plays a young version of the artist in the project, which stars Ben Kingsley as an older version. Wow, Sir Ben Kingsley. How did he get in a film with Sir Ben Kingsley? Wow. Despite the arrests and headlines about Miller's alleged behaviour, Zaslav said last week that the studio is committed to theatrical releases for a number of DC films, including The Flash. Now, listen to the quote again. We've seen them, we think they are terrific, and we think we can make them even better. What does that tell you? I've repeatedly told you this. They're going for reshoots. They're changing things. Zaslav said of DC's upcoming slate. So, basically, it's kind of something and nothing. What we do know from this Hollywood Reporter article is, from this alleged insider, they are worried about the Flash movie because of Ezra Miller, and they know that something has to be done about it. So let's talk about these options. Option number one, shelving the movie, which they claim is the last possible result. If you are thinking of starting a DC universe again with a brand new franchise, you probably could just shelve this movie. It will cost you money. Releasing this film will cost you money. They're fucked. They're in checkmate because they didn't see this coming. Everybody else did, from the Icelandic incident when he allegedly choked a young woman. So it was already there. They could have done something about it. They could actually recast this role immediately and remake this movie. He's in every scene. So basically, you need to start this movie again. So is it worth doing that? Well, if you're charting a brand new course with a brand new franchise, which of course we don't know they are because we don't know much about their plans, what's the point of doing that? You may as well wait and do a Flash movie for the brand new franchise. So you could release this movie, then sack him afterwards. Again, that's not a good look. You could limit his press and marketing. Of course you can. But how does that help market the movie? I think if they really want to release this movie, and I think they really do, they think they can make some money from it, I think it's going to be absolutely different. And I definitely think that Keaton is gone, and if Keaton's in it, he won't be part of the future of the DCEU in this new timeline. It's fucked. It's gone. The only way you can release this film with this person and hope for the best, if he makes a public statement. If he does a press conference where we can see him, and he apologizes, and he admits that he needs help, and he is getting help. That may help the situation, but it's still incredibly awkward. They could do that. But is he willing to apologize for his actions? He has accused people of homophobic behavior and accused people of anti-Semitism, and says that all of this that's coming out is a lie, and he's blaming these things and blaming the people and his accusers. So, or should I say their accusers. So, are they still of that mind that nothing's their fault and this is about homophobia and anti-Semitism? If he's still from that frame of mind, he ain't going to make a public statement, and this is where they have a problem. So, as I said, for me, this film would be shelved immediately. This film would have been shelved months ago, and if you were going to stick with the DCEU timeline, you'd have to remake it again and take the loss. The problem is, Zaslav needs every penny he can get, but the problem is, with Ezra Miller starring in this movie, he ain't going to make a dime out of this film. It's a very, very complicated situation. They're going to have to make a decision sooner rather than later. There's no point waiting to see if things get worse. Things have got worse. This movie cannot be released with this person in the film. But will a greedy studio make the right decision? We'll have to wait and see. Inside the confusing state of DC, from huge Joker 2 paydays to the search for their Kevin Feige by Brent Lang, Adam B. Vary, are they looking for their Kevin Feige, or do they want Kevin Feige? How ambitious is Zaslav? Is it probable that Kevin Feige would leave Marvel Studios and come to DC? I think so. I think it's the end of the line for Kevin Feige at the MCU. He can see the walls closing in with that franchise, and I think he would be very, very interested in being the president of DC Studios. When Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav spoke to investors on August 4th, the very first question was about his decision announced 2 days earlier to cancel the release of DC Comics adaptation Batgirl, taking the HBO Max production as well as Scoob, Holiday Hunt, as a tax write-down instead. If Zaslav hoped his answer might help to quell the firestorm that choice created across the industry, he appears to have done the opposite. Let me explain something to you, and obviously, being defunct journalists who don't understand how it all works, he doesn't care about the reaction. He doesn't. But he is trying to calm the situation down because Wall Street hasn't really reacted well to that cancellation, but I believe the cancellation of that film was the right decision. Zaslav made public what had been reported and rumoured for months, that the company had restructured to create a team with a 10-year plan focusing just on DC. That would be similar to the structure that Alan Hall and Bob Iger put together very effectively with Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige at Disney. And guess who's advising Zaslav? Yes, Mr. Horn himself, who put that plan together at Disney. Alan Horn himself. But the executive who took the reins of the company in April did not disclose who would be part of that team, nor did he acknowledge that Walter Hamada, the executive who's led the DC Films unit since 2018, actually has a long-term plan for DC's cinematic universe and has been in the middle of implementing it. Basically, Hamada's toast. Go and tell your friend Toby Emmerich. And while Zaslav's newly announced reset for DC appeared to dismiss Hamada and his team's preparation, the lack of specifics and some mixed signals has created an atmosphere of confusion. It's true, people are confused, and they're going to have to clarify situations. And rampant speculation over the future of more than a dozen DC film and TV projects already in the pipeline. As it stands, only one new DC feature project currently has a green light post-merger, Joker Folie à Deux, which is scheduled to hit theatres in 2024, the follow-up to the wildly successful 2019 Joker, which grossed $1.07 billion globally, comes with a much bigger price tag than the first. Both Joaquin Phoenix and director Todd Phillips are believed to be getting $20 million paydays. And new co-star Lady Gaga is getting $10 million. Those salaries, combined with the cost of producing complicated musical sequences, though one insider stresses Joker 2 is more like A Star is Born than In the Heights, means that the sequel will cost roughly $150 million to produce. Now, this is interesting. The first film didn't even cost it didn't even cost $100 million to make. It cost about 90 to 70 million to make. So this is a big one. High investment. They want to make a lot of money from this, but this shows that Hamada is willing to invest. Let me say that again, not Hamada. It shows that Zaslav is willing to invest in the right projects that he believes in. That's still cheaper than most superhero movies, which often cost upwards of 200 million, like the Batman, for example, which earned a solid 770 million globally in a pandemic environment. To be fair, Spider-Man No Way Home, that had been released earlier, had made much more than that, and they were still in a so-called pandemic era, so you can't use that as a reason for that film making 770 million. I think the Batman's box office is perfectly fine. We'll talk about that shortly. Writer-director Matt Reeves is on track for a sequel with star Robert Pattinson, but the project remains in development and does not yet have a green light. Wow! Wow, wow, wow. So, let's read that again. Matt Reeves is on track for a sequel with star Robert Pattinson, but the project remains in development and does not yet have a green light. Now, this is interesting because, look, let me explain to you how it works in Hollywood, right? So they announced at two places, at a convention, a CinemaCon, they announced the Batman sequel, and they announced it at Warner Brothers Discovery up front alongside Peacemaker Season 2. So you would assume this is a green light, but the script would have to be green lit. I mean, are Variety being a bit mischievous here? Or is this true? That this film, I mean, they're saying it's only in development. Is this film in development hell? Is David Zaslav, through his plans to create one DC universe, thinking maybe the Batman doesn't fit his mold? How ironic would it be if the Joker sequel is happening, which it is, that's been greenlit. They're saying it. That's the only future project that's being greenlit right now. They're saying the Batman sequel hasn't been greenlit. If they're right, it is in development, but as I explained yesterday, there's development and there's development hell. It looks like the Batman sequel could be in development hell. Now, this means the Penguin series, which I thought was safe on HBO Max, and the Arkham series on HBO Max are also in doubt. It means Matt Reeves' The Batman may not go ahead. I'm only talking about what I've just read. So this is very interesting. So if Zaslav has doubts about Matt Reeves' universe, what would it be? It can't be about the director himself. He's a genius. He's very thoughtful. I think The Batman's a very good film. I wouldn't say it's as good as Batman 89. I wouldn't say it's as good as Batman Returns. I wouldn't say it's as good as Batman Begins. Batman Begins is the kudos of Batman movies. The Dark Knight. Is it as good as The Dark Knight? No, I don't think it is. But I like the movie. Let's make that clear. The movie did lack a lot of action, but did have one great scene with the Batmobile. It would be an absolute tragedy if the Batman sequel doesn't get a green light. But ultimately, did this film, appeal to all the people you want to come in? Well, look, these movie companies have seen $1 billion movies coming through, via Marvel. Now, the records for origin stories for first movies used to be lower than sequels in comic book movies. So what you used to get is the first movie never used to make as much as the second movie in terms of comic book movies. What Marvel then did was start doing a lot of crossovers for the first movie, which bumped them up to $1 billion. And now Warner Brothers are going to want $1 billion origin movie. This is what happened with Man of Steel. They weren't happy that it only made $700 million. And the Batman movie made $750 million. This is what I predicted a long time ago, that Zaslav wants $1 billion CBM movies, or you're in a lot of trouble. Now, they kind of announced it already. So they gave him the green light to do it. So what's changed here? Well, Matt Reeves is connected to J.J. Abrams, someone that David Zaslav isn't at all happy with. But at the end of the day, if a director can make you money and can give you a great take of an iconic character like Batman, who his friends are, it's irrelevant. Now, they were going to do an animated Batman series based on the original one, right, from Bruce Timm. But if J.J. Abrams and Zaslav have fallen out, then J.J. Abrams can't be involved with that animation anymore, because he was originally. Could this have upset Matt Reeves? Could this make this a problem? Well, all I can say, according to this, and I don't know what they know, if they're just guesstimating, I don't know. But if you listen to this, at this moment in time, the Batman is in development hell. What does this mean for Batman going forward? It means either, no, it's not either. They are looking to have one Batman in one universe, and they don't want Robert Pattinson to be it. They want to create a comic book accurate Batman in one franchise. They don't want 2 or 3 Batman, which was the plan with Walter Hamada's multiverse strategy. This is what this all means. We're going to have to wait and see. These are ruthless decisions being made, but ultimately this could be the best for DC. Now, you're going to say to me, what do you mean? And no Matt Reeves Batman, the best for DC. I understand a lot of you are invested in this, but these are plans being made because this man wants a definitive take on DC live action and doesn't want multiple versions of multiple characters. The multiverse is something you do after 20 or 30 movies. A bit like the MCU, you don't start diving into it to save your franchise. That isn't going to work. So yes, it looks like, from my point of view and what they're saying here, that actually the Batman sequel is in development hell, which will be very concerning for fans of Matt Reeves' take on Batman. Any future film is years away, which is obvious. Several other DC properties have been in development as feature films, some for years. Wonder Woman 3 with Patty Jenkins directing. Superman with Ta-Nehisi Coates writing. Zatanna with Emerald Fennell writing. And Static Shock with Michael B. Jordan producing. But there haven't been any substantive updates on these films because they're not happening. Since news of them first broke, a spokesperson for Warner Brothers declined to comment for this story. So this is very, very interesting. So is Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman happening? No. Is Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3 happening? No. I told you so many months ago. Again, you lot didn't believe me. Remember, the #1 source for DC news, DC updates, and DC opinions. And you should spread that, because they are facts, my friends. Anyway, Will Zaytana with Emerald Fennell writing and Static Shock with Michael B. Jordan producing happened. Well, Static Shock is a problem because, of course, Static Shock is a character of colour. Cancelling that would put them in a bit of trouble. But what they could do is move it to movie theatres and give it a bit more money. We'll see about that with Michael B. Jordan producing. But there haven't been any, basically. So basically, a spokesperson for Warner Brothers refused to comment, which means what this article is actually saying is on the nose. Meanwhile, the idea of launching straight-to-streaming DC-branded films appears to have been abandoned, or at least imperiled. With the cancellation of Batgirl under Jason Kilar, DC had intended to introduce several less prominent characters on HBO Max before later integrating them into feature films. Now, this is interesting. So, let me tell you what I think about what Jason Kilar's plan was and what Walter Hamada's plan was, to do some kind of lower graded characters. By the way, Batgirl's not really a lower grade character. She's a lot more popular than people think. But anyway, what could have Batgirl done for HBO Max? It would have brought more subscribers to the platform. It would have made them more money. If people know DC movies and quality DC movies are coming exclusively to HBO Max, you will bring money to that platform. But for some reason, Zaslav doesn't believe it's profitable enough. And this is not just about streaming and what streaming makes. For Zaslav, he believes the money that this studio needs to make to break even yet again is through the cinematic system, the theatrical system. And I agree with him. If you can make $1 billion or more per comic book movie, there's more money there. So again, I agree with Zaslav's side of things. So, them into feature films that were targeted for a theatrical release. Blue Beetle, which features the first Mexican-American big-screen superhero, had originally been part of this strategy. Just think about what a bad look. You talk about Zaslav cancelling Batgirl, starring a Hispanic lead, right, is a bad look. And, you know, the first Latino superhero movie, and they were dumping it on a streaming service instead of putting it in movie theatres. It was actually Zaslav who decided that was wrong. So before you call him a racist and a Trump supporter and a 60-year-old white man, think about what you're saying. But even before Zaslav took the reins, the film pivoted to a traditional release. With a $100 million budget, it will now open in theatres in 2023. Yeah, Zaslav didn't get there, but he made that decision. It wasn't Emmerich. Don't give it to your friend Emmerich. But Batgirl won't. After a disappointing screening of a 10-week director's cut led to middling test scores, insiders point out, however, that practically all movies are in rough shape that early in post-production. But, think about this. The audiences are told that it's in a rough cut, and you must judge it. We want you to judge the story and what's going on and the interaction between the characters and the actors. So that doesn't excuse a low test score. And Batgirl was designed to be watched on television, not a big screen. It doesn't really matter because the test audience weren't judging it on a theatrical movie anyway. So it lacked the kind of gargantuan set pieces that could have goosed its score. No, because they were asked not to judge it on that. So you're just spreading propaganda. But attempting to expand the movie into a big screen proposition would have required reshoots, which Warner Brothers Discovery deemed to be a waste of money. Yes, they deemed the Batgirl movie to be a waste of money. I'm not sure about that, but it could be because they're planning to do a brand new franchise. Again, this is just a theory of mine. They don't want to waste more money on the older franchise. And yet a Black Canary standalone movie starring Jurnee Smollett reprising the title role from 2020's Birds of Prey, a flop, and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn is still reportedly in development. I think that's in development hell as well. For HBO Max, it's not going to happen. And newly installed Warner Brothers Pictures Group chief Michael DeLuca and Pam Abney, in seeking to mend fences with Batgirl star Leslie Grace, are entertaining the possibility of having her continue to play Batgirl in a future DC film, or at least star in another Warner Brothers production. Yeah, what's more likely? They'll give her own movie. You may see her cameo if the Flash movie still happens, or Aquaman and Lost Kingdom, or even Blue Beetle would be a good place for her to cameo. But listen, the DCEU is going to be gone, so it's all irrelevant. They'll eventually recast another Batgirl. Maybe Leslie will still get the gig. We'll have to wait and see. Whatever film might feature Grace in the Batgirl cape and cowl again will likely be up to whoever Zaslav ultimately empowers to lead DC, by directly citing Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios as a model for DC's future. In the earnings call, Zaslav threw more fuel onto an already raging rumour mill over who could get the job. One example, Greg Berlanti, who oversees many of DC's television properties, that Zaslav's actually cancelled by now as well. So, anyway, has been loudly whispered as a possibility for the role. So, they're saying that a lot of people have suggested Greg Berlanti should be the DC president, the DC Studios president. I've spoken about this before. Has been loudly whispered as a possibility for the role, but no one from Warner Brothers has actually approached his camp. Berlanti has not pursued the job, and insiders believe that the superstar producer wouldn't be interested in going in-house. Yeah, you're telling me if he was offered the biggest role in the DC studios, he would say no? Of course he wouldn't. He would be both right and wrong. He did a lot of good things with Arrowverse. He did a lot of bad things. He's one of these people who believes in making television and film a political platform as well as an entertainment one. He would be problematic, but he did do some good things. He was also involved in the flop Green Lantern movie starring Ryan Reynolds. As I say, he's both good and bad. I don't think this is the right person to take over, and I don't think he will. Dan Lin, the producer of the Lego Movie and Sherlock Holmes, is lamented on the August the 5th episode of the Ankler podcast, but recorded before news of the Batgirl cancellation broke, that his work in 2008 producing the ill-fated Justice League movie with director George Miller nearly had him overseeing the entire DC franchise, but Lin remains committed to his own production company, Rideback, and his ongoing production deal at Universal. Listen, if they offered him a good deal and a free rein, I'm sure he'd consider it. But again, I don't know much about him. It's probably not him. Marvel Studios' style of integrated film and TV storytelling would also be far more complicated to implement at Warner Brothers Discovery. Feige runs his own fiefdom at Disney. But any TV production for DC would also need to flow through HBO Max chief Casey Bloys, and the Warner Brothers TV chair Channing Dungey. Well, not necessarily. When you appoint the president of DC Studios, DC content has to be under their remit, and they shouldn't have to, they can talk to Casey Bloys and the other person, Channing Dungey, but at the end of the day, it's got to be their remit, or it's too confusing. The independence of whoever would try to coordinate DC films and TV storytelling, and whoever takes the job, will likely inherit the unceasing headaches with The Flash, which faces unprecedented challenges caused by allegations of abuse by and multiple arrests of its star, Ezra Miller. Even with those hurdles, Zaslav remains steadfast in his plan for a single DC vertical led by an executive reporting directly to him until that position is filled, and it likely won't be for months. The status quo continues at the company, with Hamada overseeing DC film. Listen, Hamada isn't overseeing anything. We know that Adby and DeLuca and Zaslav are now running things. All Hamada is doing till October is sharpening his pencils. DC film under Adby and DeLuca, the latter of whom has demonstrated his fanboy bona fides in meetings and impressed people at DC with his knowledge of comic book arcana when he was an executive at New Line. DeLuca developed the Blade franchise and even tried to get an Iron Man movie off the ground well before the character launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it looks like Michael DeLuca, I think that's his name, right, one of the people leading the chair at Warner Brothers Pictures, is apparently a big fanboy and knowledge of DC. This is very good news for us fans, a fan running DC. Right, for now, until they find someone. But maybe Pam Abby will end up running Warner Brothers Pictures on her own, and Michael DeLuca could end up being the DC Studios president. Considering he developed Blade and he tried to develop an Iron Man movie franchise himself, maybe he could be the right person for the job. That's something that could develop very shortly, so think about that for a minute. In fact, the future of DC films could very well be its present. DeLuca and Abby have made no secret that they want Hamada to remain at the helm of the unit. Right. No. There's no way this could absolutely happen. What I think's happening here is they've asked him to remain temporarily. There's no way that Walter Hamada becomes DC Studios president. If this was to happen, everyone, that would be it. You would probably be done, and I would be done. Walter Hamada allowed Margot Robbie to run Birds of Prey, a flop SJW movie. He allowed Patty Jenkins to do whatever she wanted with Wonder Woman 84. There is no way this can happen. And if it does, it would mean David Zaslav is as bad as Toby Emmerich. We'll have to wait and see on that. So, let's go back to this. That they want Hamada to remain at the helm of the unit. A fellow New Line alum, Hamada has been credited in guiding the likes of Aquaman and the Batman to the box office success. As I say, Variety is pro Toby Emmerich, so be careful with everything. Anyway, Hamada is widely respected on the lot for his keen story sense and relationships with talent. He also keeps a low profile in the business of big egos, which has endeared him to stop. Wait a minute, right? They're trying to spin the fact that this is a DC film president since Ray Fisher outed him that doesn't speak to the fans, and they're calling this endearing. No way can this guy stay. And I'm sure Zaslav understands this. This is a very pro Toby Emmerich publication. Remember that. And I'm calling bullshit on this. But Warner Brothers ranks and file also believe that Hamada has been mistreated even before Discovery bought the company from AT&T. They note that Hamada had to endure death threats. You see what I mean? This is such a pro Toby Emmerich publication anyway. They note that Hamada had to endure death threats after Justice League star Ray Fisher publicly accused the executive of undermining an investigation into misconduct, allegations related to reshoots on that film. And you're touting him as a future DC Studios president, and you're trying to spread propaganda. Many staffers believe the studio did not do enough to back their embattled executive, and for it was unfair that he became the target of the Snyderverse fans because that film was completed before he took over at DC. Or was it? Many people believe, including Ray Fisher, and I don't want to misquote him here, that Walter Hamada was actually involved during Justice League. But as I say, this is a very pro-Emmerich publication, Variety, and I've warned you about this before. The last straw appears to have been the decision to cancel Batgirl, which caused Hamada to nearly resign. DeLuca and Abby convinced him to remain at the studios at least until Black Adam opens in October. Whether Hamada stays any longer appears to be extremely up to the executive. No, it's not up to him. He'll go back. Listen, they're not going to out him totally. He'll go back to New Line Cinema, and that's great. But Hamada isn't going to stay. Forget it. And if he gets some bullshit title, he won't be running DC. Even if Hamada does remain in his job, Zaslav still plans to transform DC films and TV efforts from a confederation of semi-integrated productions into a single MCU-style creative endeavor. As I say, he's looking for one size fits all and one universe. That's why I believe the DCEU is toast and they will eventually start again. Doing so, however, complicates plans for a host of TV titles. Reeves is still planning a spin-off TV series of The Batman focusing on Colin Farrell's Penguin, and James Gunn is still set to make a second season of Peacemaker. A spin-off of his 2021 DC film, The Suicide Squad. Neither of those projects, however, have anything to do with each other, nor with Phillips' Joker movies, obviously. And this is something which won't sit well with Zaslav. He's greenlit Peacemaker 2, and we don't know about Arkham from Matt Reeves and the Penguin from Matt Reeves, if that even happened. But these things can happen because they're not involved in the DCEU anyway. Well, Peacemaker is. But ultimately, he will use James Gunn's projects, he will use these upcoming DC movies just to bide his time while they develop a brand new one-size-fits-all franchise anyway. The DCEU as it is will go eventually. Beyond those projects, DC's future on TV gets much murkier. Berlanti's Green Lantern series is still currently moving forward. Sources say it's the biggest, most ambitious DC adaptation ever, mounted by the prolific producer, but his DC anthology series, Strange Adventures, has been killed, along with a Wonder Twins HBO Max movie with KJ Apa and Isabel May. I believe Green Lantern is very important to Zaslav and WB. I do believe an ambitious take on HBO Max could be interesting for the streamer, but ultimately there's more money to be made from a Green Lantern franchise because it's a world of its own, really, the Green Lantern Corps. I think that should go to movie theatres, and it needs a prolific, someone like Peter Jackson to deal with that. It's that huge. Cornering Green Lantern on HBO Max isn't the right thing to do unless you're that ambitious to have Green Lantern on HBO Max and a movie franchise that's all connected to this one-size-fits-all new franchise, both one playing in movie theatres and one version on TV. Now that I would agree with. The profane animated series Harley Quinn, currently streaming its third season, has a major following, would seem to be safe. Nothing is safe, as I explained yesterday. Whereas it's still to be determined whether live-action DC shows Titans and Doom Patrol would be renewed after new seasons of both shows premiered later this year. But as with all TV series on the service, final decisions will be made once the seasons are streaming, like what happens with all television shows. Then there's J.J. Abrams, yes, someone that Zaslav isn't happy with at all. Plans for a Justice League Dark series, which would be an Avengers-style show featuring DC characters from the titular team, spin-offs featuring DC characters such as Constantine and Madame Xandu remain in active development. Shall I tell you what that means? That means they're in development hell and you'll never see them. Constantine producers have even scouted locations in preparation to start shooting in early 2023. They're saying 2023 so they don't have to do anything now. Not happening. But everyday risks faced by any production have been compounded by the shock of the Batgirl cancellation and uncertainty over who will be the new big boss at DC. So, is it an interesting article? What did you think? Let me know. There's a lot of bullshit in this article. I have warned you all before that Variety is very pro Toby Emmerich. Do you remember the Ann Sarnoff hit piece when she announced that the Snyderverse would not be restored after they released Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut? It's very pro Emmerich, and Emmerich is using this publication to fight for his projects, because if his projects don't happen, like the Flash movie, and with Hamada staying, he loses bonuses. This is all about executive money and power struggles, everyone. So don't take everything literally. Let's go back to the Batman. I would imagine the Batman will still happen because David Zaslav has already said he's happy with it. So a lot of this stuff is very interesting. I think Variety, as I say, that are working secretly with Toby Emmerich, the former chairperson of Warner Brothers Pictures, who ran Warner Bros. Pictures to the ground, and that's why we needed David Zaslav and why David Zaslav needs $3 billion in cuts. Toby Emmerich is the problem. I believe the Batman will continue. Hopefully, the sequel will happen. The Penguin show on HBO Max and the Arkham show will happen, hopefully, because David Zaslav sounds like a fan. He's a big fan of Todd Phillips. He wants him really involved in consulting with him with the future of DC Studios and DC live action. But Walter Hamada remaining as the head of DC isn't going to happen. But I do believe what they meant is the new chair people, Pam Adby and Mike DeLuca, want him to stay on at the studio. But he'll have no say-so going forward in DC live action. Quite right too. The Rock goes bad. Dwayne Johnson embraces villainy as Black Adam. Vanity Fair have done a huge spread on Black Adam, so let's get into it. Exclusive new images of the DC antihero who has all the powers of Superman except for mercy, empathy, and compassion. by Anthony Bresnikan of Vanity Fair. So here's the first picture of our Black Adam. Doesn't he look great? I think this is the movie that really doesn't have much baggage on it, and it's just going to go out there. You know, this is The Rock. He's hugely popular. Hopefully it can make money for them. It'll be very interesting to see how the public react to this movie. You can tell Dwayne Johnson has absorbed some personality traits from his Black Adam character. By the way, he's already started to trash talk Superman. Black Adam is the nemesis of Shazam in the comics lore, but Johnson seems to enjoy picking fights with those who loom even larger. When you pull Black Adam out of the pantheon of superheroes in the DC universe, he is blessed with these incredible superpowers from the gods that rival Superman. The actor says the difference is, well, a few things. Number one, Superman's greatest weakness is magic, and one of Black Adam's greatest superpowers is magic. This is true. Basically, it's not just kryptonite that can hurt and kills Superman. Magic can as well. Black Adam can fly, bullets bounce off his skin, and explosions would merely amuse his hair, if he had any. He can rip through stone walls and bend steel instead of shooting heat rays from his eyes. He channels lightning blasts from his fists, but unlike Superman, he doesn't have any soft spot like mercy, empathy, or compassion. Superman won't kill anybody. There's a code that he lives by, and he honors, Johnson says. Black Adam has a unique code of ethics too. He will not hesitate. And I like to have a little fun when I'm explaining this, to rip somebody in half. Does that mean the actor is kidding? Literally, he'll grab someone by the neck and by the thigh and then rip them up. Tear them apart, Johnson clarifies. Here's another little picture for you. I don't know if you can see it properly, but this is pretty cool as well. He's looking pretty badass there. That's why Black Adam falls more into the category of supervillain than superhero, and why the October 21st movie is a heel turn for Johnson, who built his global superstardom playing fundamentally decent men who are bulldozer tough, but also have a moral core that's solid, as let's say a rock. After starring as a good guy after good guy in blockbuster after blockbuster, Johnson says it's time for fans to see him in a new light, or maybe light is the wrong word. It's okay to have zero idea who Black Adam is. Few outside the hardcore geek sphere do. Although the character has been causing havoc in the pages of comic books since 1945, I did think about that a lot because I didn't know about Black Adam either, says Jami Colicera, the director of the movie. Johnson and producers Hiram Garcia and Beau Flynn first pitched him the project while they were making Jungle Cruise in 2018. Colicera says he was interested in leaning into the character's obscurity, making the movie more of a mystery than a recitation of a familiar origin story. It's not your typical superhero movie where a guy wants to be a superhero and gets the powers, and then you spend 50 minutes trying to figure out how the powers work. The filmmaker says this is a movie where you introduce Black Adam right away, and then throughout the movie you slowly peel back the onion and reveal what happened. Yeah, and I found that a very interesting facet of the movie. In the actual world, Black Adam first appeared at the end of World War II in the pages of Fawcett Comics. Now long defunct, he was always a foe of Captain Marvel, although not the Captain Marvel you think, possessing matching powers but using them very differently. If you don't know, Shazam used to be called Captain Marvel. That's what they're talking about. Adam was once a mortal from ancient Egypt who was granted his mystical abilities to fight evil in the world instantly afterward. He became a brutal tyrant. A forced time out from the planet lasted several thousand years, which only enraged him more when he returned. Fawcett Comics also took a long hiatus, abandoning superhero storytelling in the early 1950s, in part because of a long-running lawsuit that came at it had repeatedly ripped off Superman stories in the 1970s. DC officially acquired the rights to Fawcett's fellow characters, integrating them into the very universe they were once accused of imitating. By then, rival Marvel Comics had created its own Captain Marvel, still not the one you think, but closer. So the new DC version of the character had to be rebranded with the magical catchphrase that activates his powers, Shazam! When Warner Brothers began development on a Shazam movie in 2014, Johnson signed on to co-star as Black Adam, but when the film starring Zachary Levi was released in 2019, there was no Rock and almost no Black Adam either. When the first draft of the movie came to us, it was a combination of Black Adam and Shazam, two origin stories in one movie, Johnson recalls. Now that was the goal, so it wasn't a complete surprise when I read that. I just knew in my gut, we can't make this movie like this. We would be doing Black Adam an incredible disservice. It would have been fine for Shazam having two origin stories converge in one movie, but not good for Black Adam. Yes, I kind of agree with that, it's true. Johnson started lobbying for the bad guy to get his own film. I made a phone call, Johnson says. I said, I have to share my thoughts here. It's very unpopular because everybody thought, hey, this script is great. Let's go make this movie. I said, I really think that you should make Shazam, make that movie on its own in the tone that you want, and I think we should separate this as well. The 2019 Shazam movie did include one allusion to Black Adam the Wizard, who bestows the powers of the superhero, reveals that he once gave the abilities recklessly to the wrong person, who used them to unleash vengeance on the world. As he recounts this tale, an illuminated figure who looks a lot like Johnson as Black Adam is shown presiding over the misery. The standalone movie will undoubtedly make Black Adam go mainstream, but for now the filmmaker, producer and Johnson himself have some work to do, introducing him to the unfamiliar. There's a voracious appetite for superhero stories, but in an era of reboots and multiverses uniting three actors who all played the same part once upon a time, audiences have come to believe that most of the great characters have already had at least one moment on screen. That's not the case with Black Adam. I always get asked 9 times out of 10, well, what's taking them so long? How come we haven't heard of this character, says Johnson, who sees that as a plus. We get a chance to deliver a movie, deliver a character that's never been seen before. There has been no other Black Adam, but who is he? Let's start with the name. Black Adam's real name is Tef Adam. Johnson explains, and the black in Black Adam refers to his soul. Tef Adam was also the name given to the character during his debut in 1945. For the film, Egypt has been replaced as his homeland with the fictional Middle Eastern realm of Kanda, as it has been in the comics for years. Otherwise, the origin stories match up. Black Adam's turn to the dark side will also provide more of a rationale for his merciless, if not a justification for it. Mercilessness, should I say. It's all connected to something unspeakable that happened to his family when they were enslaved in that long ago era. That's something that's universal, that everyone can relate to, Johnson says. It doesn't matter your colour or your religion or what your bank account says or wherever you live or what your job is. I mean, everybody can relate to family and wanting to do all you can to protect that family. And when your family's ripped away from you, it changes that person. This is spot on. This is interesting, really. He speaks very deeply about the film, like it's very, very deep. And I don't want to give away anything here. So it'll be interesting, again, how the public respond to this. Comics are full of heroes who lose loved ones to wrongdoers only to seek solace in saving others from similar fates. Black Adam is just built differently. He's more aligned with the vengeance-seeking anti-heroes of the 70s, whose brutality start to overtake that of their enemies. Think Charles Bronson in Death Wish, Pam Grier in Foxy Brown, and Miko Kaji in Lady Snowblood, or one particular cop who simply harboured extreme contempt for punks. Dirty Harry. I talked early on with DJ about how there were many aspects between Black Adam and Dirty Harry, which is a movie that broke rules in the 70s. Colette Sarah says, the systems were corrupt, so you had criminals taking advantage. You needed a cop that would cut through the bullshit and basically do what needs to be done. That's very much in line with Black Adam and his way of thinking. I think that's appealing to pretty much everybody. Everybody knows how the world sometimes is not fair, and you need people that break the rules to even out the playing field. The world doesn't see Black Adam that way, at least not when he's first awakened and unleashed on the earth, as a terrifying, unstoppable supernatural force to everyone else. He looks like a monster, and he basically is. His view of the world that he's brought back into the current world now after 5,000 years is very myopic, Johnson says. There's no room or space for him being wrong. There's no room or space for anyone else's opinion. There's only room and space for him justifying anything that he does because of his pain. And he pushes and pushes and pushes and does not see any other way. It's very black and white. Eventually, all that pushing will lead him to others who are willing to push back. Of course, the Justice Society of America. The film introduces moviegoers to the Justice Society of America, which is separate from the similar sounding and now more widely known Justice League. The JSA started uniting heroes about 2 decades before and features the likes of Dr. Fate, Hawkman, who turn up in Black Adam, played by Pierce Brosnan, and Aldis Hodge. So here's a picture of Hawkman, a very small one. Check that out. I think he looks really, really cool. In the comics, Hawkman flies with wings forged from extraterrestrial metal. He also dates back to ancient Egyptian times, reincarnating ceaselessly over the centuries while passing on the mantle of the flying hero. In the present day, he's the leader of the JSA and leads the others in standing up to Black Adam's aggression. Colette Serra notes that some DC writers have forged a connection between the two over the years that dates back several millennia, but the movie isn't going to get tangled up with that. Now this is interesting. In the comics there are clear references of like, hey, I saw you 5,000 years ago, you remember me. We're not doing that, the filmmaker says. It would be too confusing. Now, I don't agree, right? So if this guy's reincarnated and Black Adam's lived for so many years, why can't they say, I remember you? You're an arsehole. I remember you, we fought before, or you were a better person. I remember your family. Why is that confusing? Toby Emmerich and Walter Hamada wanted to make the multiverse canon. They wanted to make Christopher Reeve's Superman canon with the DCEU. As we know, Michael Keaton's Batman 89 canon with the DCEU. Now that's confusing. Black Adam and Hawkman knowing each other because Hawkman has reincarnated so many times and Black Adam has been around for thousands of years. Them saying, hey dude, I remember you, isn't confusing. That's disappointing. Obviously, Hawkman reincarnates, so how many times do you need to reincarnate and still remember? All these rules are something you don't want to set until those characters are really established. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. You missed the trick there. Hodge's Hawkman is repulsed by Black Adam's tactics but shares some of his stubbornness. He's a very driven character that knows that he's on the right side. Colette Serra says definitely he's a leader. He wants to bring his team together and bring a certain stability to the world. Hawkman has a very strong sense of what's right or wrong, and Black Adam challenges that. Dr. Fate is known for his distinctive golden helmet and supernatural abilities, but Colette Serra says this Black Adam opponent's other superpowers is raw charisma. While Fate can't overpower Black Adam in strength department, he might be able to reason with him. You need a special actor to play basically a legend. The filmmaker explains Dr. Fate is a very powerful being, so you need someone like Pierce who can play powerful without it being overly done. He can do it in a very subtle way. I mean, he's one of the coolest people in the world. He was James Bond, but as a person, he's magnetic, so warm, with such gravitas. Yes, Dr. Fate could end up being kind of the character of the DCEU, the kind, calming, the one who talks to people, tries to help people, teach people a better way. That's indeed if we have a DCEU to look forward to going forward, or if they do something else. But I think this is all very, very interesting. While Hawkman and Dr. Fate are the veterans of the JSA also includes some relative novices with Cyclone and Atom Smasher. They are also very beloved characters, but we've gone the younger route in this. I agree with that decision, Colette Serra says. Quintessa Swindell's Cyclone hails from a family of heroes and now has to live up to that legacy, overshadowed by a grandmother who was known as Red Tornado. It's always fun when you introduce characters in a team that have never really seen combat before, so the audience gets to experience it through those fresh eyes. Colette Serra says, and the same with Atom Smasher. Even though Atom Smasher is a bit more experienced, they're close in age, and together they have a bond. We are the new ones here. Let's not screw it up yet. Now here's a brilliant picture of Atom Smasher. I love this, and I love this young guy who's playing the character. But I actually like kind of the idea of these two characters, the male and the female younger characters, these novices having this bond and relationship. And you will see this within the movie. There's a lot of banter between them. They're great together. One of my favourite elements of this film. So, as I say, very interesting how the public perceive this film, but I think it is an interesting film. Even though I don't agree with everything about it, I think it's an exciting film, and we'll see where it leads. It's all about the box office at the end of the day. Noah Centinio's Atom Smasher can make himself gigantic, but also feels crushed by the expectations that come with his powers. He's still not sure that this is what he wants to do. Colette Serra says he thinks this is what he wants to do. He thinks he's on the right side, but he has a lot more questions. That seems to be a running theme in Black Adam. The more certain you are that you're right, the less likely that's true. Wow! I have to give it to Vanity Fair. I have to give it to The Rock and his production company and David Zaslav for doing this huge spread. This was absolutely fantastic. This details a lot of the movie, but doesn't give much away. And, if I was raw to this and didn't have much information and intel on this movie, I'd be thinking, yeah, I'm going to go and see this movie. But guess what? Yeah, I'm going to see this movie anyway. I'm going to see the full version of this movie, and I can't wait to do so. It's a DC movie. Why wouldn't I be excited about it? With all the negativity of the Flash movie and Amber Heard in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and all the uncertainty around DC live action, it is good to have films to look forward to. I hope Black Adam does release October the 21st. With spreads like this, I think that film is safe. I also hope and think that Shazam! Fury of the Gods is safe. I don't think there's really an issue with those movies. The issues will have always been with the Flash movie for multiple reasons, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom only because of Amber Heard, because that film is the dog's nuts. I can assure you, DC films are mostly well made and highly entertaining, and most of the DCEU films historically have been well made, compelling, entertaining movies, in my opinion. But there's been so many problems historically. Now, David Zaslav is looking to do open heart surgery on the studio who owns DC and DC itself. Who knows if they can fix the DCEU or if we need a new franchise? We're just going to have to wait and see. This has been Friday's show here on Movies TV Mad with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I will see you on Saturday's show. This is going to take a long time to upload, but if we're talking now and you're watching this, it has uploaded successfully. Fingers crossed that a 1 hour and 7 minute, nearly 1 hour 8 minute video doesn't start uploading and then I need to start uploading it again. This is going to take many hours. I've enjoyed doing this extended edition of the show. I will see you next time. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.